Welcome to Notable Approvals. I am attorney Amanda Schaefer. Just got out of court. Exciting little case to talk to you about today and show the importance of hiring an attorney at your earliest possible moment. So, today's client, she lives up in Long Island and is a native and citizen of Ecuador. She entered the US about a month ago. She crossed the border illegally with her daughter, who's a minor, very young, and her son, but her son got separated from her. And they got caught shortly after entry and were detained for a brief period of time. And then she was released with an ankle monitor. She was then given a credible fear interview. And what that means is that when you're caught at the border and immigration says, "Are you afraid to return home?" and you say yes, then they're required by law to do a credible fear interview. And if they find that there is a credible fear that you will be if you're sent back to your country, you will be persecuted on account of one of the 5 protected asylum grounds, then they will refer your case to immigration court and will give you an opportunity to apply for asylum. However, if there is a negative credible fear determination, whether it's because they didn't find you credible or because the reason you expressed for return that you couldn't return home didn't fall under one of the asylum grounds, then you are allowed to get your case reviewed by an immigration judge. And you have to request it at the time. And it has to be within 7 days of that interview. So all of this moves very fast. And that could be hard if you're detained, especially because my advice, of course, is get a lawyer as soon as humanly possible. Because the sooner you get a lawyer, the sooner you understand what the requirements for asylum are. And if you have a legitimate asylum claim, the earlier on in the process, you'll be able to assert that claim rather than having to go back in time and try to explain why you didn't raise certain issues earlier on. And that's kind of what happened today a little bit. So basically, they found the client to be, they believed her at the asylum interview, but they said, well, this sounds more like general crime than it does that somebody was targeting you on account of one of those 5 protected grounds, which is race, race, race and ethnicity, nationality, religion, political opinion, and our favorite particular social group. If you're wondering what a particular social group is, well, the Immigration and Nationality Act does not define it. I'm not going to get into that right now, but essentially what you need to know is it has to be a well-defined group with an immutable characteristic, so you can't change, such as someone who's gay. That's an easy example for that one. But it is not necessarily because gang violence or domestic violence doesn't necessarily count. And a lot of claims from this area of the world do involve that. So the client actually, when she was released, she went to New York where her partner resides, but her court was in Baltimore. And we were called yesterday and said, "Oh, we have court today. Can you appear?" And we're like, "Well, we're not in Maryland, so I'm not going to be able to get down there. Why don't you tell the judge that you're looking for an attorney and get another court date?" So that's what the client did, and they gave the next court date today. Which obviously doesn't give much time, but they did make it virtual, enabling me to appear for her. And she was able to appear as well. And in that time period, I entered my appearance. And this is one of the nice things that the government is finally getting around to, which is putting immigration cases online. I know in some areas of the country, they've had it for a while. In New York, we're slowly, I mean, only really the newer cases are going online. But what's nice is I was able to file my appearance for her yesterday, and then I immediately had access to all of the documents filed in her case. So basically, whatever the judge had, I had. And that made it really easy because I was able to read her credible fear interviews, see what she said to the officer, and then have a call. Since she doesn't speak English, her husband partner translated. I was able to do that this morning before the hearing to prepare her, because generally the judges do not let attorneys do the questioning at these credible fear interview reviews. Um, I was permitted today to make a statement, which I'll get to in a second, but whether she's being questioned by me or the judge, she has to be ready for the questions. So I went through everything. I explained what asylum is. I explained that there were some issues with her story, with in terms of it fitting the eligibility requirements. And it turns out there's, of course, a lot more to the story. And this is very common, especially when you have a client who is not educated. And, when they get to the border, they're scared. They don't know what to say, what not to say. So we had a little session this morning where we went over it all. And then the judge asked her a bunch of questions while I listened. I took notes. And then I got to make a little statement at the end, and I explained to the judge that, number one, the fact that she's uneducated is important, because she expressed that she wanted a lawyer at the beginning of the credible fear interview, but she couldn't get in touch with one. It was also significant because she said that she didn't understand all the questions the interpreter asked. And the judge said, but on here, they ask you, do you understand everything? And you said, yes. She said, yeah, I didn't know what else to do because I asked them to repeat it. They did. I didn't want to ask a third time. So she just kind of yes them. And with my experience, especially with people who come to this country, don't speak English or speak very little English, and are fearful, they do tend to yes you, even when they should be knowing you, knowing you. Saying no, I don't understand. They don't always. I have plenty of clients yes me to death, and I'm like, all right, I don't think you really understood. So if you're watching this, and this is whether you speak English or not, uh, you should, whenever you're being interviewed by a government officer, especially when it comes to immigration, make sure you understand what you're being asked. It's okay to ask again, and it's okay to ask again. Sometimes they'll tell you something, a really long statement, or ask you a really long question. You can ask them to break it up, but the worst thing you could do is try to answer questions that you don't understand the answer to. I say the worst thing because how do you know what you're answering? And then it creates problems, and it can make you look like you're lying later on. So rule number one, this is one of my first rules I tell clients. I have like a couple of main rules about testifying or interviewing when it comes to these matters. And number one is make sure you understand the question that is asked, hands down. So at the end, after I explained to the judge, okay, here, this is the type of person we're dealing with. And now here is what I was able to understand in the last 24 hours about what happened to her back in Ecuador. Spoke to her partner. He was translating. This is what I told the judge. And at the end, so my one goal today, we'll start there. My one goal today was that she didn't get a deportation order. This wasn't in person, so they weren't necessarily picking her up and kicking her out of the country today. She did have an ankle monitor on, so it wouldn't have been difficult for them to track her down. So my one goal was, let's not get her deported. Let's get her into regular removal proceedings so that she can apply for asylum, and we could, really hammer out her claim more. And just for the record, when you're at this point, you haven't filed an application for asylum yet. You've just had this interview. So at the end, the judge vacated the negative credible fear determination, found that there was a reasonable probability that she would be harmed if she returned to her country, based on one of the protected grounds. Specifically, she mentioned a few things. She was, one of the claims she was a little weary about because the client hadn't mentioned it at the credible fear interview, but, the client did give a reason why, because she said she was always judged back in her home country. She was afraid she'd be judged here. Well, is that enough to get her asylum? I don't know, but is it enough to at least get her to the next step in the process? Yes. So, what is the next step in the process? The Department of Homeland Security is going to issue a notice to appear in immigration court. I suspect they'll do that soon. I've had clients not get them still after years, but usually they do issue them. And we're going to have to immediately file to change venue to New York since she's moved to New York. And because the court, she had given the detention center an address in Maryland because that's where she had family. So they put her case in Maryland. So we're going to move to change venue in New York. And then we're going to file her asylum application. We need a lot more information, of course, some evidence, all that fun stuff. But like I said, number one was let's just keep her here so that she has the opportunity to really file for it, because that's really what is fair if she has a legitimate fear of returning home based on one of the 5 protected grounds. So that is really all today, except one last very important thing. I stressed at the beginning how you want to get a lawyer early on. This client is an example of that. Had this client not had me today, and yes, she had to, she got lucky that her husband was able to track us down, and we were available, and the judge gave her an extra day. But don't wait. Please, I beg you out there. If you would like to hire us, we would love to represent you and do our best. But we can't do our best when you hire us last minute, the day before, the day of. Now, she did try to hire us the day of. She got it moved. It wasn't her choice that it was the next day. But the point is that I cannot do my best for you if you hire me last minute. And if you do go to court without an attorney, you might be digging yourself a hole that you don't realize, because everything you say on the record, everything you say is being recorded. And DHS is going to look at this. The judge is going to look at this when it comes to your next hearing, and they're going to use it to impeach your credibility if you say different things. So at the earliest possible time, you want to hire that attorney, and you want to make sure that you tell your attorney everything. Don't be afraid. We're here to help you. I can understand being afraid to tell the asylum officer, even with the judge without an attorney present. But that's one of the main benefits of hiring an attorney, is that you will be able to have a safe space where you can really hammer out all different parts of your claims. So, and if you want, whether you hire us or someone else, if you don't give the attorney enough time to prepare, that is very difficult. And I have another case that should be talking about either later this week or next week, where that's exactly what happened. And the outcome is TBD. So congratulations to this client. I know it's a huge sigh of relief that at least, like I said, she can really be heard in front of the court. We don't know when that is yet. Hopefully it won't be too long. I know that's hard when people are detained, especially, but if you or anyone you know needs help with credible fear interview review, or asylum. I didn't put up our contact information. I'm really slipping today. Hold on one second. Okay. Now, if you are on Facebook or YouTube, contact information scrolling slowly across the bottom of your screen. On Instagram, if you go to our bio page, you can find it there. Don't forget to like us and follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you are watching, so you don't miss any of our lives. And if you found this video to be helpful, or know someone who may, go ahead and hit that share button and save this video so you can find it again soon. That is all for today. Thank you for watching and have a good day.